Well, the Arizona Wildcats had a very disappointing 2024 season. Their standards were to compete for the Big 12 title and potentially get into the college football playoff. But they did not do that. It's safe to say that they didn't do that. They didn't even make a bowl game a year ago. And you had it start, really the negative start with the loss against Kansas State. And it ended with a just embarrassing performance in the Tutorial Cup against playoff team who came out of nowhere, Arizona State, who decided to try to plant the flag like many others and was met with fist. But that was the biggest fight that I think Arizona showed the last 2 months of the season was the fist that they were trying to, or at least the one player was trying to have at the end of last season in that game against Arizona State, just not putting up with their crap. But, I mean, they got embarrassed against Arizona State, and that's the last time we saw this Arizona squad. Now, this is off to a negative note for all you Arizona fans, but I promise you this is going to change in tone a little bit. So make sure you like the video if you like the video and subscribe for more college football content as we get into the season here. So bottom line, the 2024 season was just a disaster. You had the talented first-round receiver in Tetairoa McMillan, and you end up basically wasting away his final year in college. Not just that, but you also really did risk the thought of Noah Fifita transferring out, but he's deciding to stick it out at Arizona. Kind of misspoke there, but that's okay. We're going to talk about this 2025 roster because you Arizona fans definitely want to forget about the disaster that was 2024. And a lot of people on the outside specifically would look to Brent Brennan and be like, I don't know if he's the right guy for the job. Now, this is a good head coach. He did win the Mountain West at San Jose State. He did have to coach San Jose State through COVID. So this is a guy that's kind of faced his own challenges going to a program that has not been traditionally very good at all in the Mountain West, previously the WAC before that, winning and dealing with COVID while winning. And at a school like San Jose State that, you know, was going to be a little bit more strict. I mean, let's keep it real here. Let's keep it a buck. And that's what we do. And what does Noah Fifita, who's, by the way, wearing number 1, Noah Fifita, he's going to have weapons around him. They brought in Luke Wysong out of the portal from New Mexico. They brought in Chris Hudson, a huge name from the portal from Washington State. Chris Hunter is also a really good wide receiver. You got Mizell, a freshman wide receiver that they are very high on. You also got Jeremiah Patterson, who's a really good player. At running back, they add Ishmael Mahdi coming in from Texas State. And in front of him, too, with Burnett also at tight end. And then you also got an experienced offensive line, 5 guys that are redshirt seniors, all been in college football a very long time. This offense should take a major step forward, and this should be a sense of comfortability. Even though they don't have the playmaker and the talent that Tetairoa McMillan is, I think they have a little bit more depth. And I also think that their offensive line's in a little bit more of a comfortable spot. They shored up the right side of that offensive line while getting a little bit more development and growth out of the left side of the offensive line. I'm pretty excited about this offense. I think they're going to be a fun one to watch, and that's what's going to make them a dangerous team in the Big 12. Now this defense. This defense needs to improve, and certainly the losses of Tacario Davis and Gunnar Maldonado, those 2 guys, that hurts you a ton. Dalton Johnson is going to be back in the back end. They also have their nickelback trade in Stukes coming back. They brought in Javion Cole out of the transfer portal. Marquise Groves-Kilbrew is another guy that they like at the corner spot. And then the front 6 is a little bit of a confusing area for me. I just kind of want to see what it looks like in that area of the game for Arizona, because to me, they didn't generate a ton of pressure, but they had a little bit more talent, on paper talent at the very least, in the front 7, at least to me, than they do now. So this defense, I'm not going to say it's going to take a step back, but because they were not very good last year, but I'm certainly not optimistic it's going to progress the way it should. And Could there be regression? I think there is a chance that you do see regression, which is the last thing anybody at Arizona wants to hear. But that offense, to me, should definitely be a little bit better. I think they have a better running back, and I think they're going to be able to run the ball more effectively than they did a year ago. And I also think that they have depth at wide receiver, even if the top end, Tetero and McMillan, isn't there anymore. Now, if you take a look at the schedule that they have been dealt from the Big 12 and out of conference as well, the out of conference game against Kansas State, that's going to be a return home trip. They went to Manhattan last year. It did not go well on a Friday night. Guess what? It's on a Friday night again. They get Hawaii and Weber State before that. And Hawaii, to me, would be a pretty dangerous game if they were not coming off of a game against Stanford in week 0. I think that that's important. It could work both ways. We'll dive more into that as we talk about that game. Off the bye week, they do go to Iowa State, and if there's a time to take a trip to Ames, Iowa, it would be off a bye week. A pretty tough place to play in Ames. It's just weird for a lot of teams, but specifically weird for a lot of teams when you are a favorite. Well, they're not going to be a favorite going to Ames. They're definitely going to be an underdog against Kansas State and Iowa State. I think Oklahoma State and BYU are two interesting games. BYU, to me, is definitely an interesting team because I think that too many people are putting a little bit too much weight on this Jake Retzloff situation. They're forgetting how good that team is that's returning. They're forgetting how good Kalani Sitake is as a head coach. And Oklahoma State, by the way, I have no idea what they're going to look like. And sometimes that's when Gundy sparks a huge surprise. So we'll see what the transfer portal brought us from Oklahoma State, okay? At Houston following those games. Now, that BYU game ahead of Houston, that's a very tough spot. Houston especially is a team that I'm seeing more and more people are high on now than they probably would have been back in the spring. At Colorado off the bye week, again, a good trip after a bye week, but you really wish that you would get a home game after one of these bye weeks, but I guess it kind of works out because it's a little bit more time to be at home before a travel spot, but that one's not a far travel spot. Kansas back at home at Cincinnati. I mean, this back five is pretty loaded, and I think it elevates in difficulty. So you got Colorado in November. We don't know what they're going to look like. They're a little bit of a mystery team, but I could certainly see it where Colorado's depth is going to be challenged, and maybe their depth is not going to be good enough to meet the challenge. Then you get Kansas, and it's at home. Jalen Daniels is going to be tough, but what else is going on over there at Kansas? I don't think too many other people could really tell me. They did lose a lot with the wide receivers and Devin Neal that they lost. So then they get a road trip to Cincinnati, and that's a very tough spot because Cincinnati on the road is across the country. You don't have a bye before that one. So that's going to be a tough spot for Arizona. And then to me, it gets even tougher with Baylor because I think Baylor out of this 5-game stretch is the toughest team. And then you got Arizona State on the road, a rivalry game, so you can't rule them out. But Arizona State by far is one of, if not the most talented team on their schedule, at least in conference play, not including Kansas State, because obviously that's not a conference game. So let's go through the schedule. You got Hawaii, week 1. And again, Hawaii's coming off of that game against Stanford, which this could work 2 ways. All right, 2 ways. Number 1, Hawaii already playing a game, getting their feet wet. That could be a huge advantage for Arizona. But number 2, Hawaii is favored right now against Stanford. Like, what if Hawaii pulls off that big win at home and Timmy Chang's squad has to turn around and go to Arizona for the next week? I think that's a pretty tough spot. Vegas has Hawaii favored. Not to spoil a Stanford preview if we do a Stanford preview, but I think that Hawaii is going to beat Stanford but lose this game against Arizona. I also think Arizona, though we've seen improvement from Weber State, they should not have a problem with Weber State. So I have Arizona starting off 2-0 before welcoming in Kansas State for a Friday night football game in Tucson. This is going to be a tough game for Kansas State. I think their defense is going to have to be up to the challenge, but I like their defense, and I like how well coached they've been under Chris Kleiman on that side of the ball. This is really a huge point of time for Avery Johnson to prove that he has elevated his game and that this offense can take the step to the next level. We have seen moments from Avery Johnson in this offense. We know Jace Brown can really play. We know, even going back to his freshman year at Colorado, that Dylan Edwards is a really talented kid. And we know that they're going to have some good hog mollies up front. Can Kansas State put it all together? Well, this is the first step in showing that to the country, and I think they're going to be able to do it, at least in this game. I got Kansas State winning, knocking Arizona down to 2-1. Off the bye, going on the road at Iowa State, This is going to be a very tough game to pick. I think that Iowa State could start off the season slow, but increasing confidence that Matt Campbell thinks that they can indeed replace the two two-headed monster at wide receiver, in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, who are both off to the NFL to the same team. And I don't know if Iowa State's going to start off hot. They play Kansas State in week 0. They play Iowa in week 2. It's not an easy start to the year. But Iowa State, if they're going to start figuring things out, I think it starts with this home game against Arizona. I'm taking the Cyclones to beat Arizona, knocking Arizona to 2-2. Next up, you got Oklahoma State. Again, huge mystery bag. It sounds like Haas Haney is going to be the starting quarterback over there, but outside of the starting quarterback, do you really know the quality of team that you're getting from Oklahoma State? I mean, even people who know football, they look at Oklahoma State's roster and they see a bunch of low-level FCS, a bunch of D2 kids, and they're like, what is this? Are they going to be able to compete? I just don't know. I'm not going to be confident in the Pokes all season long. I'm taking Arizona to win that game at home. BYU, this is going to be a very tough game. This BYU team is going to be really good. They've played really good defense as of late. I don't really care who their quarterback is. It seems like a system that's going to be working. I do not care. I'm taking Arizona because I think that firepower is going to be a little bit too much. And if that offense is going to get in the rhythm at Arizona, this is about the time of the season that they start getting in the rhythm. However, I think that this defense that's going to be much maligned stylistically is going to struggle much more with Willie Fritz and the Houston offense than they would with a style like BYU. I think Willie Fritz will clip them here on October 18th. I got Houston winning that game, knocking Arizona to 4-3 going into the second bye week. Off of the bye week, they're playing against Colorado. Colorado, again, to me, is kind of another mystery bag. I think they could be really solid. They have some talent for sure, but again, depth is a concern, and we still don't know who their quarterback is going to be. I think it probably will be Caden Salter, but at this point in the season, is Arizona playing a true freshman? Either way, when you look at a running quarterback, a rushing quarterback, and Caden Salter that has not, or at least last year, did not show me he could really kill you with his arm, or if you got the true freshman Juju Lewis, I like their chances against Colorado, even on the road. I'm taking Arizona to win their 5th game of the season, which, if I remember correctly, by the way, I did this preview, but I had prepared it for yesterday, and I had computer issues. But with that being said, I'm pretty sure they were 5-7 last year. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So that would match their win total from a year ago with still 4 games to play. And I think they beat that win total, and I think they get to a bowl game beating Kansas. Look, this Kansas team, I think they're still going to be solid. I like Lance Leipold a lot. But they are replacing a ton. That experience was supposed to vault them to be a Big 12 contender last year, and it flopped, and they dealt with a little bit of injury, and you finally got Jalen Daniels healthy, but the issue is this is November 8th. We don't know if Jalen Daniels is going to be healthy, because he hasn't been fully healthy for a full season anytime he's been the full-time starter. I don't like factoring in injury, and I hope that he stays healthy and plays all 12 games 100% healthy, or as 100% as a football player can be. But I can't trust Kansas, especially in November. I'm taking Arizona to get their 6th win. They're 6-3 as they take a cross-country road trip to Cincinnati, and I think feeling themselves a little bit with the combination of, I think that the Cincinnati offense has a real chance to be something good, and I think that that defense is going to be really good too. As much of I would say, lack of a fan I am of Scott Satterfield. I don't really think he's all that good of a coach. I still think he's going to be able to get the dub. Like, I think Cincinnati is going to have a pretty solid year this year. I definitely don't think they're going to be an easy out, especially in Nippert Stadium this season, even if it's a little bit nippy in mid-November. Then you get Baylor, return back at home. This is an interesting game to me because I think that they could definitely clip Baylor, especially because some people are saying that they're very high on Baylor. I'm not spoiling what I expect Baylor to do this year. I do think that they're going to be a really good team at the very least, though. I just think that this is not a spot where Arizona is going to be able to clip them. I have them losing yet another game going into the rivalry game on Black Friday against Arizona State. And on that day, I'm going to take Arizona State to win. Look, this team is still going to be really good at Arizona State. I get you have concerns about replacing Cam Skattebo. I think what Cam Skattebo does is it takes away a certain ceiling that the Arizona State team has. The issue is like that ceiling was going into overtime and nearly beating Texas. There were times last year, and you could look to that Texas game as an example, where that Arizona State team relied on Cam Skattebo, but it wasn't all the time. And I think they have enough talent that they're going to be still a very, very good team. And I think that that loss is going to drop Arizona to 6-6 and 4-5 in conference with the 5 losses there: Iowa State, Houston, Cincinnati, Baylor, Arizona State. Again, Kansas State, not a conference loss. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'll make sure to check out my other videos that are around, even if they're from forever ago, because I'm terrible at posting. But we're hoping to get another post tonight. If not, we're going to be ready to go tomorrow morning, or tomorrow afternoon, I should say, to post another video. So season's right around the corner. I'm going to be committed more than I have been as of late. Let's get to it. I'm excited about football. So should you be.